purpose of the weekend is to go through a planning format, to look at how to plan for Mantle the Expert. And then tomorrow we've got a group of kids coming in, does everybody know that? For a couple of hours, which we're going to work with. So we'll plan something today that we can work with those on. But I'd like not just obviously just to plan for that couple of hours, but to plan as many contexts as we can, lots of different contexts, and look at all different kinds of areas of study for children, depending on which kinds of groups that you work with yourselves. So obviously it will be age appropriate, and as we plan and work on these, getting it working for the children in the classes that you work with, the age group that you work with is actually critical. If you pitch it too high or too low, then the whole thing can fall apart. So we'll look at all of that. What you'll find in this pack is, to start with, is this explanation of what currently I think is the best that I know of describing what Mantle the Expert is, trying to capture what Dorothy had in mind. It's just an introduction to what Mantle the Expert has installed, if you want to find out lots more. So basically, I think there are three circles in that, actually, three dimensions of that. The first is that it's an inquiry approach. And I've listed down here some of the things I think that are involved in inquiry. Mantle the Expert involves children co-constructing the curriculum, investigating what's happening in the curriculum. The curriculum isn't delivered to them. That's a really damaging idea, this idea that the curriculum can be delivered to kids. It's not a parcel. Kids aren't letterboxes. Nobody is. That isn't how learning happens. So if you're involved in an inquiry, an investigation, the children are themselves active in that. So in Vexcast, in here, you may have noticed that as you came in, they're doing a Second World War. That's the context. It's a Mantle the Expert, which we'll get to in a minute. But the children aren't just being told stuff. They're actually investigating it as active learners, and that's what inquiry is about. The second dimension is it's drama for learning. Now, I know that some people have used drama. When I started using Mantle the Expert, I didn't know anything about drama. Nothing at all. So I had to sort of learn as I was going along. And in actual fact, for me, drama was a bit scary. It was something at school that I didn't enjoy very much. I don't know what your experience of drama was when you were a kid, but mine was mostly going in the hall in your pants and vest and pretending that you were a giant or a cloud or something. If you're doing an inquiry about Nelson, it might be quite interesting to look at pictures of Nelson on Victory, and it might be quite interesting to read about the battles and things. But if you can if as a teacher you can take the kids and step onto Victory, if you can be there at the day of Trafalgar, if you can experience something of what it's like safely in the classroom, being in a battle, if you can do that with them, then the curriculum opens up in ways that just looking at books and reading about it isn't going to do. Problem is, and I found this a lot, I don't know if those people that use drama have this experience, but if you don't know how to use drama very well, what can happen? It can be a nightmare. Because you can imagine kids just running around screaming, I'm getting blown up, and all that sort of stuff. Because what drama does is it gives structure to it. It gives frame. And that's where the skill lies, in being able to create these experiences for children while structuring it through the conventions. Okay, and that leaves the third dimension, which is what specifically is Mantle the Expert. And for those people who haven't come across Mantle the Expert before, it's really difficult to explain, because in one way it's a really simple idea. The children are experts. So in this class, just help us out a bit, what are they experts in?
Research at the moment. We're going to end up being an expert as a billeting officer commissioned by the government.
Right. So they're going to be billeting officers. They're going to be, is that finding places for evacuees? Right. So in the story, in the imagination, imaginative context, the children are going to be people who are finding homes for evacuees. in the imaginary context, you're doing it because there's this work, there's this person or this organisation that needs this work done, and it needs to be done in a particular way. You can't, if you're dealing with Henry VIII, you can't give him crap because he's a king. I can't show him this. Do you think you go away and make it so that it's really clear to him, because he doesn't like sitting there reading stuff that's difficult to read. There's that kind of thing that you can start creating with the kids, but only if they care about it. If they don't care about it, they'll just think they're being manipulated, which is why when we look at the planning and why it's so important when you start one of these things that you go step by step to make sure that the children are themselves really invested in it, that they really care about it. The context is that in the school where I've just started in this infant school in January, and the real Queen, because it's in Dersingham, which is near Sandringham, the real Queen is visiting the school on February the 6th. So 2 weeks' time. She really is coming. And it's the first part of her year of celebrations for the Jubilee, so it's a big deal. It's going to be on the telly and all sorts of stuff. So the head teacher, who really wants to make the expert working at school, said that because she taught the class, she said that they're doing the BFG.
Sorry, I was just imagining that meeting.
Yes. So that's what's going on. And she said, can you create a map of the expert doing that with those two things? Okay. So that's your challenge. So you've got a team of experts, client, and a commission. The context is the BFG, and what the head wants is the children to practice meeting the Queen before the Queen comes. So the Queen's really going to come to the school. So in the context, it's going to create an opportunity for the children to practice meeting the Queen. But so let's have a go at thinking of, you can be as imaginative as you like. So don't be restricted in terms of the team of experts. So what team of experts do you think might be involved with these giants in the BFG, which would also mean that they would have to meet the Queen and practice what it's like meeting the Queen?
Anyway, Richard, what do you reckon? Well, you're a good planner.
Well, I reckon
So she's
Yeah.
Right, so basically we came up with the idea that the Queen's, we're not sure exactly who they're going to be, but like sort of PA or something, are going to contact us regarding the New Year's honours list, and they want to honour the BFG with a bravery award or something. And the children are going to be events management experts. So we need to create this event, and there's going to be lots of issues. So things like issues with the venue, so the space and the size, what sort of venue can we get? We talk about, like, because Sophie's so small and the BFG's so big, so how can we design a stage that would get them both in a shot if we were taking a photograph? Sort of designing a nice suit for the BFG, and we're always going to throw something in there like we're going to plant a big footprint somewhere one morning, and it looks like either one of the giants have escaped from the pit or one of them wasn't actually captured in the first place. Right. So what are we going to do? We need to protect the BFG, because obviously it's going to be advertised everywhere and they're going to know that he's there. What should we do if we find this giant? So yeah, that sort of thing.
We would start from the point of view of the Queen not being particularly happy or concerned that there was several 9 evil giants still in the hole and whether a danger to society. So she was speaking to her entourage, whoever she speaks to, and it's like something needs to be done.
So can you find the words? What sort of words would you use for something like that? Well, she's talking to her advisors, so what's she saying to them? Try it. You don't have to speak like the Queen. Just say the words.
Just like she's very concerned.
Try saying it.
I'm
Go on.
very concerned
That's it.
that there are 9 evil giants remaining in a hole that could continue to be a danger to the children in our society, and I'd like something to be done about it. That they
Okay, so
could be useful.
so they could be useful. Ah.
So we kind of were thinking, going along the lines of that they need rehabilitating.
Okay.
So a 10-step program.
Hold on a second.
Sorry.
Just no, that's fine. So, okay. So for the rest of us, who might the Queen be talking to in that context?
Psychiatrists
Mm,
who are used to the criminal mind.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also like probation officers.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. People who are used to working with the dangerous, with the criminal, with the people who are unpredictable. Yes.
SWAT team.
They're emergency response team. People who act rapidly in dangerous circumstances. Because if we're going to let them out of the hole, Your Majesty, is that what you plan? You plan for us to let them out of the hole?
Well, I hope that something can be done. That they could be.
What are the kids actually going to be investigating here in terms of an inquiry type approach? So you could do it as just a purely practical thing. You could say practically we need to build homes for these people, we need to keep them secure so they don't get out until we're sure that they're safe. So there's all those practical aspects, but there's another line here, which is what do you do with people who are dangerous, who are possibly insane? Can they be ever? Sorry, help me out with the word. What's the word? Rehabilitated. Can they be? Well, that's an inquiry question. Can you rehabilitate people who have only ever in their lives shown one way of behaviour? So if you want, so like something like historical, what did people think about historical in terms of inquiry questions for this?
Sending people to Australia, getting rid of the problem by sending them as far away as possible. And then it was more now where if you had groups like gypsy groups or travelling groups, not in my backyard, I don't want them near me, let's put them somewhere else. Where would you put them if you were moving them to somewhere?
Yeah, because it's not really touched on in the book, that sense of the giants, being people who are outsiders, who are treated differently. They're just evil. They're like a fairy tale. In the past, this is just the sort of thing that people did in the past.
So you don't necessarily change the book and add to the book and so on.
You can't change the narrative of the book.
Exactly, so you can look at, so they learn through looking at the way people have been treated and whatever you choose.
Yeah.
I suppose you're taking it on after the end of the book
Yeah,
as well, aren't you?
yeah, that's right.
So your new stories are your own in a sense.
Yeah.
You're not
Yeah.
sort of
The
interfering
narrative,
with the narrative of the book.
Yeah.
No, my favourite way of describing this is framing.
Yes.
And I know that Dorothy uses the word framing in lots of
Yes.
ways, but I think in terms of framing
Mm.
of in any art form, there's always a frame. There's always limits to what.
Yes.
And then you're calling it a lens, which again I think is a
Yeah.
nice way of describing it, because you're looking at this particular thing through a certain viewpoint,
Yes.
a certain thing that says, well, space. So what does space do to people?
Yes.
If you go into a church or a cathedral, it immediately has an impact on you, doesn't it?
Yes.
We've got to keep people safe from these giants. They could still be dangerous, so you do immediately get into,
Yeah.
prisons and...
Yeah. Is it an open prison? Is it a prison of which they're starting off, if they're let out of the hole, the first place they go, the first concern we've got is that they're going to try and escape. So at which point can we move them into this lovely designed open prison where we can trust them that they're not going to escape and start eating people? Well, that is a fantastic question for older children, because at what point do you know people are telling the truth? Well, you're going to get into... are they psychopaths?
You've got to be really, really careful with the role that you've set the children in, because in a way those are massive decisions to make, and you don't want them almost to have the responsibility of making those decisions. They still need to be able to take steps out.
Which is where they're protected as architects.
Yes, because they're not making moral
They're not
and
making
ethical
those
decisions.
No, those decisions are made by other people. Now they can step into those shoes and experience that,
Yeah, yeah.
but it's not what they are as a team. That's Dorothy's great, I think, that frame distancing thing. So we can look at it in terms of what would it be like if we had to make that decision. The exercise that I'd like us to do is to look at the divisions of culture that's on here, and you can choose either to continue looking at the context that you were developing in your groups, or to look at the one that I just outlined there, and have a look along this list. All this is a way of thinking divergently. So you look along this list and you think to yourself, what opportunities are there for the children to develop understanding under these cultural headings? So let's choose law, just because I saw it just briefly there and thought, law. Now can we do law? Law for the ones that we were just looking at there. What for year twos? What might they learn about law if they were running this island as giant watchers?
Kind of human rights, what they have to provide.
That's it. Perfect. One of Dorothy's great tools. She every single time I saw her, she got this one out. Came in different forms, but it was always the same thing. So there's clearly something that she used a lot. But what did people make of it in terms of generating ideas and possible?
It's always nice to have a list, isn't it, to like someone to start from. If you get a bit of a blank, it's quite nice to have something there to work from and then solution, couldn't you? Because if the giants started to adapt to the island and sort of live peacefully there, you could start like linking it to like theories of evolution and like what they've done to.
And you can have animals on the island who have evolved differently from animals that,
Yeah.
in the same ways. So there's all those kinds of opportunities and things that happen there. Let's have a look at pressures from illness, weakness and vulnerability for the Giant Watch team, remembering that the giants can't know that they're there. What tension would there be? What might happen?
Would you say that if you were watching the giants and one of them became ill, do you have a responsibility to intervene and help if you know you could, or not?
Yeah. Now, one of the things that is very important when you do this work is to look for parallels in real life. So in what circumstances in real life, not just in the story that we're inventing, would that be something that might face people?
The Samaritan who can't do anything about the person who phones up and says, I'm going to kill myself, and it's part of their remit that they can be there, they can stay with them on the end of the phone, but they can't do anything else.
And what stops them?
It's part of their remit, I think.
Become a Samaritan, you agree to that, don't you? You join the brotherhood of Samaritans. You become a Samaritan. You say, you become, if you're with these TV crews, you know before you go that that's a possibility. You'll see that. In fact, you're going out looking for it. But if it happens, you can't interfere. It's the same for the Giant Watch people.
They're the most fantastic children in the world, and you'll meet them tomorrow. So they're year 3s and 4s. Some of them, the children I think, who are probably working at national average, attainment-wise. They're very eager children. They will learn an awful. They'll sponge. They'll take in anything. School is their continuity. School is their consistency in their lives. They've been beginning to think about World War II. They've been building Anderson shelters and the like. Very excited about it. Very enthused by it. So it would be good if tomorrow's work could surround that somehow.
We're going to knock this house down. It's been empty for a number of years. It was lived in by one person who'd been there since the war. Bit of a recluse. Local people don't know much about them. And when the builders went in to clear the house, they uncovered a a trapdoor that went down to a underground air raid shelter, or something that must have been used as an air raid shelter because it was full of memorabilia from the Second World War, things that were down there. Normally when they go in, they sort of strip a house, take out anything that's valuable and sell it, if there's no family involved. But with this one, it just seems to be too valuable, too important. There's a bit of homework. Is to draw tonight a picture of something that's in the Anderson shelter. No, it's not an Anderson shelter, it's one of these ones under. No, yeah, just a drawing. Just a drawing of something, and it doesn't have to be a work of art, just a drawing of something that represents something that's being found in the shelter. It kind of popped, and you can imagine the dust come up, like that. Yeah, it wasn't smelly, but it was just kind of like that, and it made that that creaking noise that old things make when that's it, like that. And there, as you look down, there's a set of stairs disappearing down into the dark like that. You couldn't see what was at the bottom, but you could see that it was very dark down there. And then he got his torch, on, and he started to walk down inside it. Would you like to talk to the builder? Would you like to see what he found? Yeah. Would you like to do that? Thanks for all coming to the meeting, by the way. I know that you've got lots of things on in the museum. It's a builder. I only spoke to him briefly on the phone, but he's found a cellar, and it's he went down into the cellar, and what he found, he said, was amazing, and he didn't want to touch anything until he'd spoken to us. No, come in. We've got a chair for you. I'm just going to grab another chair for myself. But I'd just like to know why you called us. Really.
Well, I did. I do a lot of work in the local area, and a lot of buildings. We renovate buildings and fix buildings. We knock some buildings down, but this one was special because we just got in there and we were sort of checking things out about how we're going to take things away, because I think the lady who lived in there, she'd been dead a while, and we've got some developers and they really want to put new buildings on this space. So I went in with the lads, and then we went. And we checked everything out. It seemed okay. Checked all the the walls. Brickwork seemed okay. That would come down all right. And then we thought we'd better just check downstairs under the carpets, just to see whether there was any damp coming through, or whether we'd need to do anything with that. So we rolled back the carpets in one of the rooms, and as we rolled it back, we noticed that there was a rectangle, and actually found there was a handle. And so we took the two of us at least, pulled it up. My back's still quite bad, as still quite sore from it. We pulled it up. The dust flew up. So I opened it up, steps down. I got the torch, carefully went down the steps because I didn't know whether there'd be water down there or what. It was dry. And it was like a perfectly preserved room. There were a few clothes. There was some bits of, some things didn't sparkle like diamonds in the corner, but you could tell they were like metal, polished metal things in there.
I'm just going to stop just like that. Okay? So we can talk about him, and he won't listen to us. What do you make of that?
Maybe she doesn't live. Maybe she lives where the cupboard is. Maybe she lives down there instead of up there. Maybe she's just using that house to be fed, and then she can go down there.
All right. So you think that she was living down there? Well, perhaps we should ask him that. It's a question. I don't know what sort of question should we ask him for that.
she lived down there?
Do you think she lived down there? Okay, should we try that? Okay, would you ask him that? Okay, so we're going to start him off.
Do you think she lived down there?
I don't think anyone lived down there for a long time. I'll give you a call mid-afternoon.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much. We'll look forward to hearing from you.
All right. Thanks very much for. Well, I'm really grateful for you for listening to me and setting up this meeting in such a quick time. Thanks ever so much. I'll be in touch.
What do you think is likely to be in the cellar if it was an air raid shower? What sorts of things do you think might be in there? Right, well he did mention the bed, didn't he? He said there was a camp bed down there, didn't he? So something to lie on, because people in the air raids had to stay in there. So perhaps when she heard the air raid siren, she'd go down there at night and then she'd have a bed down there. So, well he did mention something about camp bed, didn't he?
But
Okay.
Hello.
Hello, hiya. This is the museum here.
Hello. I'm just in place.
Ah, right, great. We've got a couple of questions here. I'm going to pass you on to my team. The first question is about where the house is.
Fire away.
Is the house in the countryside or is it in the city?
We're on the edge of the city, on the outer suburbs. So it's the edge of the city.
How high is the roof?
Well, I'm 1.70 m, so it's about 2 meters high.
Megan's asking that, does he think that in that box could be a gas mask? You know, in that box that you found?
Yeah.
Did you find a gas mask?
I'm afraid I'm not going to look inside it because I don't want to touch anything. I'd rather people who really know what they're on about with historical things could do that. Shall I close the trap door?
Yes.
Okay, I'm coming out now.
Should we ask him about the roof?
Don't shut the door.
What's that?
Because it's really stiff. And if you shut the door, it
might
fall off a break.
It might lock up again and we won't be able to open it.
Right. Okay. Shall we just say don't shut the door, but make sure nobody goes down there? Can you tell us?
Don't shut the door, but make sure that no one else goes down there.
Okay, it's no problem.
No one's asking when they're smashing down the house.
Oh yeah, when it's due to be smashed down?
Yeah.
Oh, is it soon? Yeah, you're right.
Do you know when the house is due to smash down?
Well, we were meant to have done it yesterday. I'm putting them off all of the time, but I'm getting a lot of pressure from the developers in London.
I mean, should we go straight away? Cameras and gloves, torches,
Metal detectors.
metal detectors, magnifying glass.
As well to label what they are.
I'd like us to leave the team here, the museum team here in the meeting room, and then go and sit over near the markings on the floor that's where the cellar's going to be. So we're going to go over there because we've got to set something up first, okay? Sarah said, when she heard that we were going to be doing something to do with the Second World War and air raids, she said, oh, I've got some stuff at home that we might be able to use in the story. And she's brought them here, look. This is the bed, isn't it? Can you see? This is the camp bed.
The medical bed. Yeah, they lift them up.
Right. And this is the bed that we're going to use in the story for the air raid shower. So Reese, could you just grab another couple of your friends? Could you put the bed into the air raid shower? Where are we going to find it? You'll need some help, so a couple more people.
Are you bored to put your plate on?
Where do you think that should go? I'm putting this into there. So we've got quite a lot of these books, and I'm putting them in.
What's under the stairs? There's the coin bed, and you've got the bed inside. It's kind of like it's a problem. So I think we have to all split up and speak to someone. So we can speak to someone. So.
Ready? Turn the phone over. The team dial the people on the list. Can we see but not hear? Can we see but not hear the team talking to people on the phone? And can we see from their faces whether they're having a difficult time convincing them or an easy time convincing them? Can we now see the team finishing the conversation successfully and putting their phones down? So we managed to rearrange all the dates. Are we happy with the dates? Was it difficult with people being awkward about it? It was easy, was it? Well, I had a really difficult person. Was it? Yes.
I still one as well, just in case I think that comes and bites us.
Have you seen, I was going to ask the builder, have you seen any rats down there?
I think it's a pretty sealed unit, as they say, so I'm not sure that there's no evidence of droppings, there's no evidence, and we've had a good scan around for those, so I don't think there's any infestation.
Do you mind if we bring our stun gun though? Because one of our teams brought a stun gun, and we just want to make sure, I mean, we promise to put the safety on and keep it.
As long as the safety's on, and we follow every health and safety the legislation we have to, I'm happy with that.
We'll need to take the torches down. You switch
We
the
could use
torches.
one of the catch torches.
You've got one of those that fits onto your cap, keeps your hands free. Okay, if you've got one of those, fit those on. Okay, great. Well, here we go. I expect there's an awful lot of stuff for us to have a look at, so I'll let the builder
Coming in,
guide you.
mind your heads and these steps. So can you see some of the ends are broken, the edges are dangerous?
The objects that you find around the edge of the river, if you talk to the adults, they will tell you what these objects are. So could I please ask you to go around, look at the objects around the side of the room, and choose one that you would like to know more about.
Do you know the kind of photos that are kept in lockets and what do you know? Do you think they're well? But money, how big are lockets yours? Because I don't think this is very big. I mean, they were that big. Yeah, about that big. They've got one clip here with Teddy.
Everybody's brought an object from the air raid shelter. Is that right? Everybody's brought those objects along. What we're going to do this morning is to decide whether we can put these objects into an exhibition for the museum. What we're thinking is that because they are almost unique in the way that they were found, that people might like to visit the museum and learn about the objects from the Second World War that you found and about the life of the person that owned them. While you're investigating them, did you manage to find out more about the old lady that owned the house?
She had a camera, and we rolled out the tape and cut it and stuck it in water. The first one had 4 people in. We reckon the person who died, her husband and her 2 kids. Then, the second one had her and the 2 kids. She had a child, and her child had a little teddy bear, and she kept a photo of her child and the teddy bear.
Oh right. So back? Did she have a child when she was much younger then? I mean, was it back in the?
She had a child during the war that was only 3 because she had a boat, and she also had a photo of the child on her shirt. This is the watch that belongs to that lady. It is not working anymore.
Because we can do this in drama and in our imagination stories, we can now talk to the watch. Although in our story this watch can speak and hear us, a watch spends most of its life either on a whip Well, Reece, you've been looking at this watch most of the time. Where is it? Is this a wristwatch or is this a watch that it's a pocket watch? So remember, this watch spent, you know, a great deal of time in a pocket. So it will only know what it knows from that life of a watch.
And who owned the watch and why did they?
Could you ask him directly? Could you say who owned you?
Who owned you and why did they have you?
I belonged to a man who lived with a woman and 2 children. The man died and I was sent back to the woman.
Why did it break? Why did you break?
Something happened to the man, some accident, and that he died and I stopped working.
Are you able to know the year from the times that you've turned?
I keep a note of the years. I'm trying to remember it. It's so long ago when I stopped. It must have been 1942, perhaps, or 43. It's so long since I've had to think about these things.
How come you were always put in a pocket? Why couldn't you just be clipped to a pocket there and hung down?
I've never thought of that. They did call me a pocket watch, so people put me in their pocket. Maybe it was just safer that way.
And we'd all like to say a big thank you to you all. And I for one, would like to give you a clap. As we were walking in, he started talking about it. So it was the perfect way in. And it is much better than my way in because it's come from them. So it immediately signs to them, this is something that we're doing together. And I'm interested in you and what you've got to say. So we started off with that. And that was kind of conversational. And Iona and I were talking this morning about, not specifically about this session, but about working with children that you don't know.
Mm.
And although they kind of, they do know me a little bit, they've sort of, I've worked with them before, but one of the first things to do is to build up a rapport. Inside the fiction now, we've switched from the red circle, from the inquiry circle, into the Mantle.
That was the first time you used we.
Yeah.
Then.
Yeah. So they're now listening to this and they're picking up clues. You don't have to say. You definitely don't say, we are going to be people working in a museum. Don't need to say that. You say, well, we're at a meeting and we've got this person coming. Do we have a special meeting room? Or do we meet people in a special place, or do we just sort of do people have to make an appointment? At that point I thought, oh, I ought to write that down. And I wrote it down, and then I said, what time are we meeting? 12, is it? Oh, good, half an hour, okay. And that became something else, didn't it? Later on with those 2 girls, that all became something, completely unintended in the tertiary. And did you see how they? Sorry, we'll talk about that now. But did you see how they forced it into the secondary?
Yeah. Well, you dealt with that really cleverly because I'd have been lost there. We don't actually want to do that, but what do I say?
But you'd have assumed that they would have all wanted to go over to the house, and I found it really interesting that they were still willing to stay because they had this important job. And I wouldn't have expected that. It was really nice.
Girls are lists, so girls like to write lists.
Yeah. I did not expect that at all. I really didn't. I was
completely
surprised that they wanted to stick and do that list. What you're trying to do is move yourself up that list. So you're starting off, they've got their attention, they're interested, they're sort of paying attention. But once they've got that, you can only keep that for a short while. They've got to become invested in it, they've got to care about it. And I don't know what they're going to care about. I can sort of offer them stuff. But Reece he's got his watch. That's what he's caring about. So David very cleverly gave him a watch, because I was saying, do you think we're going to find a watch when we get over there? And I was hoping one of you would, which he was. So that was perfect, because when we got over there it was, because that's what he was concerned about. That was his in. The other guy with the rat gun, that was his way in, wasn't it? Which could have been a problem, except it's got a safety catch and you keep it in your rucksack, so it's not a problem. But for those girls, it was that list, those appointments. I never would have guessed that. That was entirely. And what you can do in film is you can race through lots of activities real quick, can't you? Like a sort of a, I don't know, a montage, that's it, thank you. A montage of different activities where time goes real fast. So I thought, right, well if we're doing that and we're all talking to these people on this list, and then I thought, but can we hear them? And I thought, well, if we can hear them, it's going to go on forever, isn't it? Because they're all going to be going, and I told you, and I thought, no, so we can't hear them, so the sound's turned down, so we can just see from people's faces whether it's difficult or not. And then all I had to say was, and as the last phone went down, or something like that, all of that was no longer a problem, or all the appointments were rearranged or something. So I'm narrating a conclusion to it, and then all I had to do then was just say to them, did anybody? I had a real problem. Did anybody else have any problems? And we just get a little bit of feedback, like we were chatting about it, and then we move on. And the girls were fine after that, weren't they? It's all done, really.
Sorry, you know that when they came back from doing that phone call, and that girl had this list, and she said, we've got so many that we can't get through it. Maybe we need teams to take these phone calls.
Yeah, she really wanted to organise it.
Yeah,
I know.
she did.
I know. It was a fantastic thing to happen for all of us, really, because it demonstrates what you can do when you find yourself going into a direction you haven't anticipated. So it was good, and the fact that the girls were generous enough to let that be said a lot about them, I think, because it said, look, we're not trying to wreck this. We're working for it rather than against it. Inquiry circle. You're coming right out of the imaginative area into the inquiry. So a simplified version is this idea here. So you've got the classroom world, which is the real world. And then inside it, you've got the imaginary world, which is the world that we're inventing. And in order to set up the imaginary world, which we've been in while we've been doing the whole sort of setting up the museum, we're in here, we have to come out of that world, back into the real world, and set up something that we're going to use back in the imaginary world again.
Interestingly, none of the children, even though they'd helped to set up the objects in the cellar, none of them, as they went down the steps, says, I know it's in here, I just put it there, did they?
Oh, no.
I think that's an interesting point.
Isn't it? Isn't it interesting?
It helps them to become, they almost, by coming back to the real world and setting it up themselves, they almost become more passionate about it.
They use certain real objects.
Yes.
And we also included objects that were represented by what we drew on paper.
Yes.
And I just wondered what you thought the impact was of having the real ones and maybe the paper one, and in what sort of context would you use both, either, or...
Well,
do you know what I mean?
The paper things allow more dramatic play, don't
Sure.
they? I thought it was amazing with your camera. Those two girls opening the camera very carefully with pretend tweezers, getting it open, getting the film out, and then that little girl just sat there with this imaginary film for ages,
and when she was
didn't
talking, was it to you? I can't remember. I was talking to someone and she tapped me, and then she went, "Oh, do you want your film back?" And then I went, "Oh no, you keep it."
And when Reece
put it in her pocket. Yeah.
When Reece was talking about it, he was really talking about it, wasn't he? He was really looking at it.
Yeah.
Now I think that's a different power there. Because we could never have, we didn't have those resources. If we were only limited by what we had, that's as far as we'd have got.
And somehow if I'd been standing there as the watch with a real watch, we wouldn't have gotten to the imaginative dimension.
It's too real, isn't it? It would not be the same. It wouldn't. Because it's play, it's imagination. Another thing that children often do is that they'll pick up things around the classroom. They'll pick up a ruler or a pencil, and then they'll use it in the story as a knife or a saw or something. And it's fine, because in their imagination they're seeing a knife. But if you're using it in a space where other people are involved, they only see a pencil, and it becomes comedic. And if I'm creeping up behind this person in order to attack them, and I've got a pencil in my hand, it's comedic. What are you doing, stabbing him with a pencil? He's going to turn around and hit you. But if I put the pencil down, can you imagine, can you see the knife? Just use your imagination to see the knife. Can you see it?
Yeah.
Can you see the length of it? And the shape of it?
Should be careful, Richard, shouldn't you?
Can you see where it's going to...
I should run now.
Is it a knife that's going to kill him, do you think? And then now he's looking at the knife. There's a different thing, because the space is filled with your imagination. If it's a pencil, it's just a pencil. So you just got to teach kids that.
So you could say that real objects can sometimes not perhaps stimulate or stir the imagination, such an imaginative response as the drawings perhaps. You know, this is what I'm saying. It's
Absolutely.
possible. It could kill, you know, some of the imaginative stuff.
I think if you only had the real objects,
yes,
then it will stop.
Yeah.
That's exactly as David said, that a real watch won't do the same job as a drawn watch.
No.
It won't.
I think now, if this is like we go away and this is the only training we'll ever get, we won't know if we're doing it right. Like we'll go in and like, yeah, it's just you need.
You need to keep coming back. You need to keep in contact with each other. We built a network in Norfolk as part of another piece of research I did for the innovations unit, and we had a group of people around about this sort of size, and we kept meeting regularly. And I know that's exactly what you've got in mind for this network. So you just keep meeting regularly, keep talking to each other, keep trying things out. When you meet, come with an agenda and talk about what's going on in your classrooms is absolutely vital. And having the support of head teachers is really important as well. I know that something that you get in your schools. So, but it is part of a process. This is part of a journey. You have to keep going at it, trying it out.
Thinking about it when I was talking to somebody else the other day. Like I think sometimes people have such a fear of like getting something wrong, and it's like, well, you have to try something to know. You know, it's exactly what we tell the children, but it's the same for us as teachers. You have to try something or attempt to do something to know whether it's going to work, or whether you're going to become better at it. And I was just saying to my friend, she was like, "Oh, that sounds like a bit scary," and I was like, "Well, yeah, it probably is." And we've come and we've seen you do it, someone who's very experienced, and certainly of us put our hands up and say, when we go back to our classroom tomorrow, we're not going to be able to do that, in the same way. But if you start on your journey with it, then, it's worth it for the end result. And if you don't even try, then you're not going to get to the...
You won't ever get any better.
Grade.
There's no way of doing it otherwise. And I expect a lot of you are back to work tomorrow, so thank you all for that. And I think, what amazes me about this work really is that on the face of it, it looks so simple, doesn't it? On the face of it, the sort of principles seem so, and which is why I think it is so wonderful. And yet, even now, after 2 days, there's still massive questions, huge things that need to be answered, and things that open up in all of this. So it is, Dorothy died recently, and it is a really fantastic gift that she's left us, and I think that all of us need to protect it and work as hard as we can.